The ancient wooden doors of St. Mary's Cathedral creaked open with a sound that echoed like a long-forgotten whisper from the grave, slicing through the hushed murmurs of the Sunday congregation. Eleanor Hargrove, an 82-year-old widow with frail hands clasped tightly around her rosary, felt her heart seize as if gripped by an invisible fist when she glanced toward the entrance. There, silhouetted against the morning light, stood a man whose face scarred yet achingly familiar ripped open the scars of her buried past, causing her vision to blur and her body to crumple like a discarded hymn sheet onto the cold stone floor. Gasps rippled through the pews as Eleanor fainted, her body slumping sideways against the armrest, the rosary slipping from her fingers and scattering beads like lost memories across the aisle. Reverend Thomas Hale, mid-sermon on forgiveness, rushed down from the pulpit, his robes fluttering like angel wings in distress. "Someone call an ambulance," he shouted, kneeling beside her, his voice laced with genuine concern for the woman who had been a fixture in this church for over 6 decades. The congregation stirred, some whispering prayers, others craning necks to see the stranger who had just entered, a tall man in his 50s, with salt and pepper hair and eyes that mirrored Eleanor's own piercing blue. He froze in the doorway, his weathered face paling as he recognized the fallen woman, the weight of unspoken history crashing over him like a tidal wave. As paramedics arrived and gently lifted Eleanor onto a stretcher, her mind drifted into a haze of recollections, pulling her back to a time when life was vibrant and choices were irreversible. Born in the dusty plains of rural Kansas in 1943, Eleanor had grown up in a world of hardship, where dust storms choked the skies and dreams were as scarce as rain. Her parents, devout farmers, instilled in her a faith that was both anchor and chain, teaching her that redemption came only through suffering and prayer. But at 18, Eleanor fell in love with a drifter named Samuel, a man with a smile that promised adventure and eyes that hid secrets. Their whirlwind romance led to a secret pregnancy, and in the stifling judgment of her small town, she gave birth to a son, naming him Jacob after the biblical figure who wrestled with angels. Shame and fear drove Eleanor to make the hardest decision of her life. Believing she couldn't provide for Jacob in a world that shunned unwed mothers, she left him at the doorstep of a distant orphanage one rainy night in 1962, whispering a tearful goodbye as thunder masked her sobs. Samuel had vanished weeks earlier, leaving her alone with the burden. For years, she convinced herself it was for the best, burying the pain under layers of routine, marrying a kind but dull banker named Harold, raising 2 daughters who knew nothing of their half-brother, and devoting herself to church activities as penance. But the guilt festered like an untreated wound, manifesting in sleepless nights where she imagined Jacob's cries echoing in the wind. Now, as the ambulance doors closed and sirens wailed through the streets of her quiet suburban town, Eleanor's eyelids fluttered open briefly. She caught a glimpse of the man from the church following in a beat-up truck, his expression a mix of determination and sorrow. Who was he? Could it be? No, she told herself, it was impossible. Jacob had perished in a fire at the orphanage, so the faded newspaper clipping she kept hidden in her Bible had reported. Yet, doubt gnawed at her, stirring emotions she thought long dead. At the hospital, doctors bustled around Eleanor, hooking her up to monitors that beeped rhythmically like a metronome of fate. Her daughters, Margaret and Anne, arrived in a flurry of worry, their faces etched with lines of middle age. "Mom, what happened?" Margaret asked, holding her mother's hand, her voice trembling. Eleanor managed a weak smile, but her eyes darted to the doorway where the stranger now lingered, hesitating like a ghost unsure of its welcome. "I'm fine, dears," Eleanor whispered, her voice frail but laced with an undercurrent of urgency. "Just a spell." The heat in the church. But inside, turmoil raged. The man stepped forward, clearing his throat. "Excuse me," he said, his voice deep and resonant, carrying a faint Midwestern twang that sent chills down Eleanor's spine. "I think I know her. From a long time ago." And eyed him suspiciously. "Who are you?" she demanded, protective instincts flaring. The man shifted uncomfortably, pulling a worn photo from his wallet, a yellowed image of a young woman holding a baby, the same one Eleanor had tucked away in her attic. "My name is Jacob," he said simply, "and I believe this woman is my mother." The room fell silent, the weight of his words hanging like incense in the air. Eleanor's heart monitor spiked, her eyes widening in disbelief. It couldn't be. The fire. The clipping. But as she stared at him, the resemblance was undeniable, the curve of his jaw, the tilt of his head. Tears welled in her eyes, spilling over like a dam breaking after years of restraint. "Jacob," she croaked, reaching out a trembling hand. He nodded, stepping closer, his own eyes misting. "I've been looking for you for 30 years. As the family absorbed this revelation, flashbacks flooded Eleanor's mind. She remembered the night she left him, the rain soaking her dress as she ran from the orphanage, vowing never to look back. But life had a way of circling, and now, in this sterile hospital room, the past demanded reckoning. Margaret and exchanged shocked glances, their world tilting on its axis. "Mom, is this true?" and asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Eleanor nodded slowly, the confession lifting a boulder from her chest. "Yes, I was young, scared. I thought I was doing right by him." Jacob sat beside the bed, his large hand enveloping hers. "I survived the fire," he explained. "A family adopted me, raised me well. But I always wondered about you." The conversation flowed tentatively, bridges built from fragments of shared DNA and lost time. Outside, the sun dipped low, casting golden hues through the window, symbolizing perhaps a new dawn. But as Eleanor began to relax, a nurse entered with test results. "Mrs. Hargrove, your fainting spell, it wasn't just shock. We found something in your blood work." The room tensed again, the air thick with anticipation. Eleanor's doctor followed, his face grave. "It's your heart. Congestive failure. We need to discuss options." The news hit like a second blow, but in that moment, surrounded by her daughters and this long-lost son, Eleanor felt a spark of resilience. Life's twists had brought her family together at the brink, teaching her that forgiveness wasn't just divine, it was human, raw, and essential. As evening fell, they talked late into the night, weaving stories of what-ifs and might-have-beens, the bond strengthening with each word. Yet, unbeknownst to them, another figure watched from the hallway, a petite woman in her 40s, with Jacob's blue eyes and a determined set to her jaw. She was his daughter, Eleanor's granddaughter, whom he hadn't mentioned yet. Her presence promised more revelations, more healing. But for now, Eleanor closed her eyes, whispering a prayer of gratitude, her heart both literal and metaphorical beating stronger in the face of uncertainty. To be continued. The hospital room buzzed with a newfound energy the next morning, sunlight filtering through the blinds like threads of hope. Eleanor, propped up on pillows, sipped weak tea while Jacob recounted his Lithia tale of survival, adoption by a loving couple in Colorado, a career as a mechanic, and the persistent void that led him to hire a private investigator. "I found your name in old records," he said, his voice steady but emotional. "The church was my first stop in town. I never imagined." His words trailed off, the irony of their reunion in a place of worship not lost on either of them. Margaret and listened intently, their initial shock giving way to curiosity. "We have a brother?" Margaret marveled, glancing at Eleanor with a mix of hurt and understanding. Eleanor nodded, her eyes pleading for forgiveness. "I kept it secret to protect you all, but secrets have a way of unraveling." The family dynamic shifted, conversations flowing from awkward to affectionate, laughter punctuating tears as they shared photos and anecdotes. But amid the warmth, Eleanor's health loomed like a shadow. The doctor returned with a treatment plan, medication, rest, and possibly surgery. "Your heart is weak, but with care, you have time," he assured. Jacob squeezed her hand. "We'll get through this together." As the day progressed, Eleanor felt a surge of vitality, the presence of her children igniting a will to fight she hadn't known in years. That afternoon, an unexpected visitor arrived, Father Hale, the Reverend from St. Mary's, carrying a bouquet of lilies and a Bible. "Eleanor, the congregation is praying for you," he said warmly, settling into a chair. His presence brought comfort, reminding her of the community that had been her surrogate family. As they chatted, Father Hale revealed a twist that caught everyone off guard. "You know, Jacob, I remember a young man coming to the church archives last month, asking about old baptism records. Was that you?" Jacob nodded, surprised. "Yes, but how?" Father Hale smiled mysteriously. The Lord works in ways we can't fathom. But there's more. Eleanor, that orphanage fire? I dug into it after hearing whispers yesterday. Turns out, not all records were accurate. Several children were misreported as lost. The room hushed as he pulled out a faded document from his satchel, a list of survivors. Jacob's name circled in red. I thought you might need this for closure. This revelation twisted the narrative further, exposing how misinformation had fueled Eleanor's decades of guilt. She wept openly, the paper trembling in her hands. All these years, I believed you were gone because of me. Jacob embraced her. It wasn't your fault. Life happened. The priest's intervention not only validated Jacob's story, but also deepened the emotional layers, highlighting themes of fate and divine intervention. As evening approached, Jacob's daughter, Lila, finally stepped in. She had been waiting outside, giving her father space. "Grandma," she said softly, approaching the bed with a shy smile. Eleanor gasped, seeing echoes of her younger self in the woman's features. "You're?" Lila nodded. "Dad told me everything last night. I wanted to meet you." The introduction brought fresh waves of joy and regret. Joy for this extended family, regret for the lost time. Lila shared her own story. A teacher in Denver, married with 2 kids, she had grown up hearing vague tales of a lost grandmother. "Dad never gave up hope," she said, her voice cracking. This auxiliary character added a new perspective, shifting the focus from Eleanor's pain to the ripple effects on generations. It emphasized the human value of resilience, how one person's choice echoed through time, but also how love could mend the fractures. Conversations stretched into the night, with Lila showing photos of her children, Eleanor's great-grandchildren. The room filled with laughter as they planned future visits. Eleanor's heart monitor beeping steadily, a testament to her improving spirits. Yet, underlying it all was the kitsch tin of her health. A nurse warned that stress could exacerbate her condition. "Take it slow," she advised. In a quiet moment, Eleanor confided in Jacob. "I abandoned you. How can you forgive?" He paused, eyes thoughtful. "Because holding grudges chains us both. I've learned that from my own mistakes." His words carried weight, revealing his own past struggles of failed marriage, battles with addiction, making him more relatable, more human. As the family bonded, an undercurrent of tension built, and the more pragmatic daughter voiced concerns. "What if this is too much for Mom? We need to be careful." But Eleanor, feeling alive for the first time in years, waved it off. "This is what I've prayed for: reunion, redemption." The night ended with prayers led by Father Hale, the group holding hands in a circle of unity. Outside, stars twinkled like promises, but the story was far from over. Eleanor's journey toward healing had just begun, with more surprises lurking in the shadows of her past. To be continued. Discharge day arrived with a mix of excitement and apprehension. Eleanor, dressed in her favorite floral blouse, leaned on Jacob's arm as they left the hospital, the air crisp with autumn's promise. Home awaited a modest bungalow filled with knickknacks from a lifetime of quiet living. Margaret and Ann fussed over her, arranging pillows and brewing tea, while Lila explored the attic, unearthing old albums that sparked more stories. But as they settled in, a letter arrived, an anonymous envelope postmarked from Kansas, Eleanor's birthplace. Inside was a photo of Samuel, her long-lost love, looking aged but alive, with a note. "I never stopped searching. Meet me at the old farmstead." The discovery sent shockwaves through the family. Eleanor clutched the photo, memories flooding back of passionate nights and bitter partings. "He's alive?" she whispered, her voice laced with disbelief and a flicker of old affection. This twist introduced Samuel as an unexpected auxiliary character, altering perspectives on Eleanor's choices. Jacob frowned. "My father." The revelation complicated emotions: jealousy for the man who abandoned them, curiosity about his side. Lila, ever the optimist, suggested, "Maybe closure with him will help heal everything." The family debated, the discussion heated yet cathartic, underscoring the human value of confronting truths, no matter how painful. Eleanor decided to go, with Jacob and Lila accompanying her. The drive to Kansas was a pilgrimage, miles of golden fields evoking nostalgia. They arrived at the dilapidated farmstead at dusk, wind whispering through overgrown grass. Samuel waited on the porch, his frame stooped, but eyes sharp. "Ellie," he said, using her old nickname, his voice cracking. The reunion was electric with tension. Samuel explained his disappearance drafted into Vietnam, presumed dead after a battle, but surviving and hiding due to trauma. I came back, but you were married. I couldn't disrupt. Eleanor listened, anger mixing with empathy. You left me alone with our son. Samuel's eyes widened at Jacob's presence. Our son, alive. Father and son met for the first time, awkward handshakes evolving into embraces. Samuel shared war stories, scars both visible and invisible, humanizing him. Lila, observing quietly, added depth by asking probing questions, revealing Samuel's regrets and his quiet life as a recluse. This encounter emphasized forgiveness's layers not instant, but earned through understanding. Back home, Eleanor's health fluctuated. The trip exhausted her, leading to a minor setback. Doctors adjusted medications, urging rest. But the emotional highs fortified her spirit. Family dinners became routine, with Margaret, and in warming to Jacob and Lila. Stories flowed Eleanor's childhood hardships, Jacob's adventures, Samuel's eventual phone calls bridging gaps. Yet, drama escalated when and discovered old letters in Eleanor's drawer correspondence with the orphanage, revealing she had inquired about Jacob years later but stopped short of reclaiming him. Why didn't you fight for him? And confronted, hurt by the secrecy, Eleanor broke down. Fear. Shame. I thought he was better off. The confrontation forced raw honesty, strengthening bonds through vulnerability. In a poignant twist, Lila introduced her children via video call, twin boys who resembled Jacob, injecting joy and future-oriented hope. They can't wait to meet great-grandma, she beamed. This generational link highlighted life's continuity, the human essence of legacy beyond mistakes. As weeks passed, Eleanor's heart condition stabilized somewhat, thanks to family support. Church visits resumed, with Jacob by her side, the congregation welcoming him like a prodigal son. Father Hale preached on second chances, his words resonating deeply. Eleanor volunteered again, sharing her story in small groups, inspiring others with tales of redemption. But shadows lingered. Samuel's health declined rapidly, news of his hospitalization pulling the family back to Kansas. At his bedside, final words were exchanged, forgiveness granted, love reaffirmed. Take care of our boy, he whispered to Eleanor before passing peacefully. The loss was bittersweet, closing one chapter while opening others. Grief united them further, funerals becoming celebrations of life. Eleanor's reflections deepened, realizing that fainting in church wasn't just shock, it was fate's way of mending what was broken. The human value shone through. No one is beyond saving, and love, though delayed, conquers all. To be continued. Months turned into a tapestry of healing as winter blanketed the town in snow, mirroring the purity Eleanor sought in her soul. Family gatherings became cherished rituals, Thanksgiving feasts where laughter drowned out past sorrows, Christmas mornings with gifts symbolizing new beginnings. Jacob relocated nearby, his mechanic shop thriving with local support, while Lila visited often, her children bringing youthful energy that rejuvenated Eleanor. Health challenges persisted. Eleanor's congestive heart failure required ongoing care, but she approached it with grace, viewing each day as a gift. I've been given a second life, she told Father Hale during confession, her voice steady. The priest nodded wisely. God's mercy is infinite, as is ours. A subtle twist emerged through Margaret's husband, Toma, a quiet man who revealed his own adoption story, paralleling Jacob's. I understand the search for roots, he confided, adding an unexpected layer of empathy that softened family dynamics. This auxiliary perspective emphasized universal themes of identity and belonging, enriching the narrative with broader human insights. Eleanor penned letters to her great-grandchildren, chronicling her life not as excuses, but lessons in resilience. Mistakes shape us, but love redeems us, she wrote, her handwriting elegant despite trembling hands. These missives became heirlooms, passed around during evenings by the fire, fostering deeper connections. Drama peaked during a spring storm, when Eleanor's condition worsened suddenly. Rushed to the hospital, she hovered between worlds, visions of Samuel and young Jacob blending with present faces. The family rallied, holding vigil, prayers intertwining with stories. Fight, Mom, and urged, tears streaming. In that crucible, bonds solidified, Jacob forgiving fully, daughters embracing their brother, Lila vowing to carry the legacy. Miraculously, Eleanor pulled through, attributing it to love's power. Discharge brought celebrations, a church picnic where she shared her testimony. I fainted seeing my son, but rose seeing my family whole, she said, her words inspiring applause and tears. The congregation's support underscored community as a pillar of humanity. As summer bloomed, Eleanor organized a family trip to the orphanage site, now a memorial park. Standing amid wildflowers, they planted a tree in memory of lost years, a symbol of growth from ashes. Jacob scattered soil from his adoptive home, blending pasts. This is where it ends and begins, he said. Reflections on mortality deepened Eleanor's wisdom. She mentored young mothers at church, advocating forgiveness and courage. Don't let fears steal your tomorrows, she advised, her experiences lending authenticity. In quiet moments, Eleanor pondered the stranger's entrance, that fateful day, divine intervention or coincidence. Either way, it taught that life's twists, though painful, lead to profound growth. The human value radiated. Redemption isn't solitary, it's woven through relationships, echoing across generations. As autumn returned, Eleanor sat on her porch, watching leaves fall like shed regrets, surrounded by loved ones. Her heart, though frail, beat with purpose. The story of her fainting had evolved into one of rising, a testament to enduring love and the beauty of second chances. To be continued.